Let's get this one going here. Welcome to episode number 93 of the Giant Take podcast. I am Josh and I am joined by my co-host Alex. We are here to recap the NFL draft, to recap some undrafted free agents as well that we got here. We'll be giving our draft grades to everything, and we'll give you some other draft grades, from some professionals in the industry as well. But we're as professional as can be here. And Alex, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Excited to get going here. The draft has kind of died down. We're back to normal. We have a lot to review about all these prospects. But yeah, I'm excited to go over it. How are you, Josh? Reversing the question.
I'm good. I mean, we're in May now, so that's a good thing when it comes to school-wise. We're narrowing it down. I calculated it yesterday because I was bored and had nothing to do. So there was no draft happening anymore. Could add rounds 7 through 10. So and I'm not giving the NFL draft any ideas because it's enough going with 7 rounds. It's a lot of draft watching. But yesterday I calculated it's 81%, Alex, that we're done through the school year. So we're almost there. We're getting close.
Too bad the summer is like kind of like not good time for Giants like news and stuff as much. I mean, obviously there's training camp, but it's kind of sucks because obviously that's when we have a lot of time. But yeah, that's I guess not gonna be as helpful. We'll see anyway. When we actually go back in person, that's when it's gonna be tough because we're gonna have even less time because part of the time when we record is actually at our lunch during school, so it's kind of like it's kind of like a nice spot for us to record, and then we edit after school and stuff like that and do everything else that's needed. So that helps with time. But obviously when you're sitting in school, it's not like you can edit or record a podcast right there. So.
We'll just bring that's a new idea. Yeah. We'll throw it in the backpack. Yeah. Listen, with junior year anyway, because that's how, like, we don't know the specifics right now. We were kind of taking it one step at a time, but next year is our junior year. I feel like we mentioned on the podcast before, so that's like all the tests and stuff like that. But we're trying to get the study halls aligned, Alex. So we get the study halls aligned next year. We just go into the back of the library at study hall next year, just take out the microphones very slowly, and then just go full on record mode in the high school. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
That might have to happen. It may have to happen, so we'll see. But yeah, probably not. Are you ready to get into it with all the picks now? Because we have a lot of things to discuss today, and I'm excited to get into it. You ready?
Let's go. We'll start out with round 1, pick number 20 from the Chicago Bears. We obviously mentioned it last episode. We recorded it after the first round. Wide receiver Rodarius Toney out of Florida was taken by the New York Giants, and the New York Giants was also able to get a first-round pick and a fifth-round pick. So they got the 20th pick from the Bears. They got a fifth-round pick in the 2021 NFL draft that they later traded for that third-round spot. We'll talk about that later. And then they also got a first-round pick in the 2022 NFL draft, and that stacked NFL draft, and then a fourth-round pick in that next year's draft as well. So to recap it, first and a fifth in the 2021 draft, a first and a fourth in the 2022 draft as well, all from that one trade back about 9 spots to pick 20 where we picked Rodarius Toney. Very good trade. Give the trade an A. I think that's what I said last time. And give Rodarius Toney my draft grade. I'll already go into it as a B+ for Toney. Obviously, there were some other players available at that spot on the board. Kwity Paye was the main one that I really liked, but obviously in that second round, we were able to get probably as good of a player, obviously different positioning type thing there. But anyway, Alex, I'll let you take over because I know you got some stuff written down about these guys.
Yeah, so for Toney, he's flexible. He can play in the backfield. He can play in the slot, maybe even on the outside. I think due to his size on the outside against some of the better corners in the league, he may struggle, but definitely in the slot or in the backfield, he'll be good. Good production in his senior season. And has a great explosive burst in the open field, and he's definitely a big play guy. For my player comp, I'm going to kind of have that also for most of these guys at least. I'm going to go kind of with a mix here. Curtis Samuel, Percy Harvin, I think those are 2 very good comps. I think he has a higher ceiling than Curtis Samuel, and I think maybe even Percy Harvin as well. But yeah, those are going to be our player comps for that, and I'm going to give it a B+ as well. Probably for me, he was my 5th best wide receiver in the class. We took him 4th wide receiver. And obviously it came out that Urban Meyer was devastated that the Giants took Kadarius Toney because he wanted him very badly at 25. So that was interesting. So obviously it wasn't too bad of a reach if he was going to go at 25, right? It's definitely a reach of about 5 to 10 spots in my opinion, but decent. We needed a wide receiver, or at least, our ownership believed we needed a wide receiver. Dave Gettleman believed we needed a wide receiver, and we got one. So pretty good there. And Josh, you can move into the second round.
Could have been Bateman, could have been Elijah Moore. We go with Kadarius Toney out of Florida. Good pick. I'm writing an article on the Giants draft as well. And these are my grades from the article as well. So be sure to check it out on thegianttake.com. It'll probably be out, I would say, by tomorrow. I think I should be able to finish it up by today. So hopefully by tomorrow, if not the following day, which is Wednesday. At that point, I'm able to calculate my weekdays correctly. So that's a good thing. And one other thing I would just like to say about Kadarius Toney, I know we got a lot to cover, but I really like how he does compare himself after the catch to an Alvin Kamara in his player interview. He talks about himself like a Devontae Adams as a wide receiver type thing with his route running ability, and obviously doesn't drop the ball very, very often, and that's something that Devontae Adams is also, he's also talked about because of that reason as well. So Kadarius Toney, very good with drop balls, doesn't drop many balls. And then he calls himself an Alvin Kamara comparison as well. And I saw many analysts and scouts comparing him to an Alvin Kamara once he catches the ball as well. And you could see that right when you put on the highlight tape. He's very good with his yak ability. He's able to move in different spaces. And I think that quote-unquote human joystick nickname is a very good thing for him. And then, yes, now I'll move on to the second round. Another trade back. Dave Gettleman, Mr. Trade Back, Mr. Trader, because I guess he trades up in the third round. But round 2, pick 50 from the Miami Dolphins. Once again, we move back 8 spots and pick up a third-round pick for next year is correct. Yes, okay. Alex is nodding his head for everyone listening, so got to make that clear. Picked it up from the Miami Dolphins, and this one, I love this pick. My favorite pick in the entire draft. My favorite trade back pick, like kind of both things merged together. It's Azeez Ojulari, linebacker out of Georgia. Could have picked him at 42, was probably top of our board. Dave Gettleman said I think there were between 8 guys at 42, so they knew if they, I think it was 8 guys or 9 guys, whatever it was. He said
5 guys. He said, I believe he said 5 guys at 42. Yeah.
Thank you. 5 guys at 42. And then he traded back. He knew that they would still be there. Obviously, you would think 1 out of the 5. He was completely correct. So most likely, I'm sure the guy, if not the second guy that they had on their list that was as high as at 42, basically could have taken Ojulari at 42. They traded back 8 spots, still got Ojulari at 50. That's the biggest thing with this trade. And they picked up another pick in this next year's stack draft. And Ojulari, great guy off the edge, and I love his speed. That's the biggest thing with him. A first-round talent by many, and probably top 3 in many linebacker, rankings as well. Outside, interior, whatever you want to call it. Probably Parsons is always number 1 in most people's lists, not everyone's list. And then you have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, either in front of Ojulari or Ojulari ahead of him, and then Ojulari at 3 for most people. For me, it was those were the 3. Would have liked Koramoah instead of him in this pick, but Ojulari is still a wonderful player here at the 50 spot.
Yeah, in terms of the edge rushers in this class, I think Ojulari was probably the best at the moment. Maybe not the highest upside. I think Jalen Phillips probably has that. But, yeah, I like the pick. Good athleticism, a bit on the small side, but good physical traits. Needs to polish his pass rushing moves and decent in the passing game as well when he drops back into coverage. My player comp for him is going to be Yannick Ngakoue. Obviously, he plays for the Ravens now. Similar in terms of their build, similar in terms of how they came out of college, similar in terms of where they were picked actually in the draft as well. So that's the player comp we have for him, and I'm going to give that pick an A+. I really like the pick. For me, I had him as my top player on the board at that time, and I'm very much happy that we picked him up there. And very funny, they asked him Dave Gettleman in the press conference, was Aaron Robinson one of the 5 guys that you were talking about at 42? And he said yes. So Aaron Robinson was one of those guys, and they were able to get him not at 42, not at 50, but at 71. They trade up with Denver to jump the Eagles, who ended up having a bit of a catastrophe in their war room where Howie Roseman was trying to fist bumps, I believe their director of something, and he got all upset that they didn't take, I guess they were upset about Robinson. And it was very funny, and it was very nice as Giants fans to see the Eagles pissed. And then they always talk about, right, the Eagles fans are like, oh, we got Devontae Smith in front of you, but you looked at the Giants room during that 11th pick right after you guys took Devontae Smith. No one was getting angry. No one was rejecting a fist pump. Dave was sitting there. He was chilling. Joe Judge had no expression on his face as usual. Everything was all good. Only the Eagles freak out. So, clown organization, that's all I'm going to say. But Aaron Robinson, cornerback out of UCF, got him at pick 71. We gave away the 5th round pick we got in the Chicago trade, and we used that to come up, I believe it was like 5 spots to jump both of our divisional rivals in the Cowboys and the Eagles, who both desperately needed corners. Aaron Robinson, he's a great tackler, good in both man and zone coverage, quick for a big corner, tough and physical in coverage, and good in run defense as well. He's a little bit over physical, some scouts say. He's a little bit grabby, but that's what we have on him. And for the player comp, I don't think he's ever going to reach this level, but Xavier Howard, when he came out, when he was starting out in the NFL, he was also a bit grabby in college as well, and similar player builds. But obviously Xavier Howard plays on the outside. Aaron Robinson looks to be projected to be a slot in the NFL. So that's what we're looking at there with him. And I gave that an A+ grade.
Going back to Ojulari, I gave him an A for my draft grade. And then, Alex, this might be a tweet that I might put out later. So Tom Donahoe, I think is how you pronounce his name. I don't know for sure. He is the Senior Director of Player Personnel for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was previously the general manager of the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL. This is the guy that had the fist pump whole error. Soccer manager is what he's called on Google. I'll put it up to the screen right now if anyone could see that. So that might be a tweet in a little bit. So I don't know. That's interesting. But moving on to the Aaron Robinson selection. Obviously, we gave up that 5th round pick to the Denver Broncos that we just recently acquired earlier in the draft in that 1st round. The only reason I give him a B+ compared to Alex's A+, he really, really, really likes Robinson. Obviously, as you can tell from the player grade. The only reason why I didn't see him as good, it's just the tight coverage, and a lot of people are going to like this. Obviously, you want tight coverage from your quarterback. He just seems a little bit handsy. I feel like a lot of people say that as like their kind of, their one flaw with him. I just can see a lot of penalties coming from that. That's the only thing. That's why I give him a B+ in mind. But besides that, really great value here. A lot of people ranked him in the top 10, if not the top 5 at cornerbacks. Alex is in deep thought. What is going through his head? There he is. He's back to normal. But anyway, I guess we'll move on to round 4, pick 116, Ellerson Smith, linebacker out of Northern Iowa. I did not like this pick as much as the other ones. It's not as much of a reach. I feel like last year when we kind of stacked up on the players moving to the 6th round, what was it, the edge rushers that we were...
edge and linebacker, kind of a combo of both.
Yeah, so now we were kind of really looking at the outside linebacker position. We kind of stacked up there in cornerbacks. You can tell once the draft ended, the mindset going into it was we got to stack up on quarterbacks, we got to stack up on linebackers, right? Even though a lot of people thought it was offensive line, obviously Gettleman and the whole staff, Judge, whatever it was, they didn't agree with that. They wanted they wanted outside linebackers, they wanted cornerbacks. They were able to do that. Smith, a little bit of a reach, though. Northern Iowa obviously wasn't able to play. He wasn't able to play this past season because of COVID and all that stuff. So we decided to opt in because it seemed like because he has best season at Northern Iowa the season before, and he probably didn't think that if he played another season, he would be able to have as good of a year. That's just what I kind of got from it. He talked about it in his interview that he was like, all right, I was getting ready, and then turns out when I was able to kind of finish up and get ready for the season, they canceled it because of COVID, so I decided to get a really good trainer and train for my pro day and the draft, things of that nature. I assumed, and I'm sure a lot of the players did this, they assumed that they would not be able to have a better season than they had the season before that. So that's the only thing with the whole Northern Iowa Ellerson Smith situation. That's why I'm sure he declared for the draft. So listen, It's still not as bad as the grade that I would have given a player last time. I mean, a lot of people, I think, gave some C pluses later in the draft. For this one, round 4, I gave it a B.
Yeah, for me, I give it a B minus, not only because I don't exactly like the pick, also just considering the other players that were on the board at that time and the other positions of need. In terms of him, he projects well as an edge in the NFL, good length, struggles against the run, and definitely needs to bulk up a little bit because he is a little bit thin at the edge rusher position. He's a weird one. He's an awkward size for an edge rusher. He's a little bit oversized, which could be good against, some bigger offensive tackles, but he's also a little bit too thin. I'm kind of worried about what he could be in the NFL. I'm not sure if he would work out. I don't think he has the physical traits to work out in the NFL. I could be wrong, so that's why I gave it a B minus. For my player comp, I mean, there's really not even a good comparison to him because there's not really any edge rushers that have done anything in the NFL at his size. I put Lorenzo Carter as a name. Not really even a good comparison at all, to be honest. So for this one, this is a tough one. But yeah, I wouldn't even give it a comparison if I were to have to choose one. But yeah, Lorenzo Carter if it had to be one.
And just real quick, we're trying to get that edge rusher position out of the draft, and the Giants recently have not been able to do that. We have Jason Pierre-Paul, the most recent example of a very good edge rusher for the New York Giants, and that came back in 2010. And now recently we haven't been able to have, that good of a player. You go back to Avery Moss in 2017, Lorenzo Carter in 2018, O'Shane Ximines in 2019, and you had Carter Coughlin and Ximines both coming off injury-shortened 2020 seasons. So Ellerson Smith is going to try and come and break the Giants' curse, quote-unquote, these past few years. But I just don't know. I don't know how it's going to work, and we both don't – whoa, I'm losing my voice at this point. We both don't really like this pick. I mean, Alex, are you ready to go to the final? No, not the final player. Second to final player. Brightwell.
Yeah. Round 6, pick 196. Gary Brightwell, running back out of Arizona. I mean, he's a special teams guy. He was okay in the backfield. He didn't really do much for Arizona. Mostly a special teams contributor, like I said. Player comp for him. Brandon Bolden, Patriots running back who mainly played special teams, was very good for them. And that's kind of what I see him being. He could be a very good special teams contributor, but that's how I would grade it. C plus for me. I feel like special teams guys, you'd almost want this is almost too early for a special teams guy. I would try to see if you're in round 6, you could almost look to see if you could find someone who has high upside who could actually work out. But I guess they chose to go with a guy who could play well in special teams, but I'm going to give it a C plus.
A C for me is going to be that one. I don't know. This is where it's like, I get it. I guess that's the Joe Judge effect, maybe with the whole thing with the special teams, and that's how he goes with that stuff. It's fine. I mean, we both kind of don't have much to say. These late guys, as Alex takes that big, nice, long, transitional last player in the draft, yawn. We move on to the last one in the draft, and that's going to be Rodarius Williams, the cornerback out of Oklahoma State, round 6, pick 201. This guy is older for a cornerback coming out of college. Like, I don't want to call someone old. I know Jordan Ronan in the interview, he's like coming in, he's like coming out of college, you seem old, and he's like, oh, sorry about that. I mean to say, because like he's not old. He's 20. The guy's 25 years old. But coming out of college, you don't see that a lot. So I'm giving it a B minus just because of the age factor. But I mean, he's a fast cornerback. I get it. He's also got the brother Grady Williams in the NFL already, so he's got, I guess, some experience, having it in the family. I'm sure he's got really good genes, obviously. But it's just the 25. I saw the thing that he'll be 25 in the season. So he's older than Saquon Barkley, I believe. Saquon Barkley's been in the league for the last 2 years. It's I don't know. I just don't. You're going, Alex, like you like to say, at the end of these drafts, you're going for the guy with the highest upside, and I just don't think taking it like an almost 25-year-old is that high of an upside. You're going to take a young guy that looks pretty good in college and that you could develop. I don't know. The age factor really got it for me, but it still looks really good on the highlight tapes. I'm giving it a B-.
Yeah, he's fast, physical corner, solid tackler, good upside. Yes, the age is definitely a factor. Grabs and holds a lot, just like Robinson. Player comp, AJ Bouye. I mean, he's never going to reach that kind of height, but that kind of height in terms of performance, but similar build, similar type of corners coming out of college. I'll give it a B+. I get he's old, but you're looking at a 6th-round pick. Definitely interesting. This year's class, very strong at the top of the board. But once you get into these later rounds, this class was definitely weak. You could even see this in the undrafted free agents. A lot of people, for example, the Giants only signed 3 undrafted free agents. I remember last season, and that's most likely going to be it. Last season, we probably signed like 15. So definitely a lot of, I would say it's definitely a thinner class here at the end of the draft. Before we get to the undrafted free agents, because that's not really a part of the draft, that's just some signings, I guess. Overall, I'm going to give it an A-. I like what we did in the beginning of the draft. I think day 2 of the draft was our best day by far. Gave those picks both A+. The trades were very nice. I was satisfied with all of them. And I'm, reasonably happy, and I'm excited for next year's draft as well. With our 2 first-round picks, our 2 third-round picks, our 2 fourth-round picks. It's going to be a lot of picks next year, and we won't be as bored because we'll have almost double the amount of picks next year. So the draft coverage will be even more exciting.
Yeah, I factored it in. I gave it an A just to kind of separate myself from Alex a little bit. As much as I don't like some of the picks, and it's not extremely disliking the picks, I just think it's an A. I like what they did, and Gettleman even said, so I don't know who asked him offhand, but, a reporter asked him, was it a priority to get these 2022 picks? And Gettleman's like, I was lying if I told you no. So they went into it with a plan of getting some linebackers, of getting some cornerbacks as well, and picking that top wide receiver to put it on the offense. And they were able to do that. I was struggling for words there for a second, but they were able to do that. They were able to execute those plans. Gettleman was able to trade down for the first time in a very, very long time, first time ever as a GM. So good for him, good for the Giants, and they executed the plan to what they wanted to do. Even though it was not the players that we wanted, they didn't want to take our offensive line, so whatever. They obviously, Gettleman, as I have a quote here, we'll talk about it a little bit later, feels that his offensive line is better than what the media portrays.
Yeah, so for 2022 draft picks, we'll just run through it real quick since we're on the draft anyway. Next year, we're going to have our own first-round pick, another first-round pick from Chicago, a second-round pick, a third-round pick via Miami, a fourth-round pick, another fourth-round pick via Chicago, 5th, 6th, and 7th-round picks. So that's a total of, let me do some counting here. So we got 2 first rounds, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 draft picks there for next year. So that's going to be very nice. In terms of, I guess we'll go to the draft grades of some of the experts now before we get to the undrafted free agents.
I just have one quick thing. Did I say portrayals?
Yeah, I think you did. I was going to say maybe my mic or my headphones weren't working properly or something, but I was like, I wasn't going to correct you because I wasn't really sure what you were saying. But yeah, portrays is, I think, what you were trying to say. Not portrayals or whatever you said. I don't really remember now.
Yeah, portrayals. Okay. Yes, Alex, let's move to that now. So we have NFL.com, Chad Reuter. Alex is going to hold on to that for a while now. I know it. He's a grammar person. Anyway, he gave it an A for the whole class. Day 1, he gave it an A+ for Rodarius Toney. Day 2 for rounds 2 and 3, he gave it an A, and then day 3, he gave it an A. So good thing for Chad Reuter. He likes it more than we do, it seems. USA Today's Nate Davis gave it an A, and New York Post Ryan Dunleavy gave the draft an A now as well. And then I mentioned earlier, I have a quote from Dave Gettleman. This is from one of his final, I think, if not his final draft press conference. And that is no offensive lineman drafted. Well, Dave Gettleman said, quote, "It's really apparent that we have a little more confidence in our offensive line than you guys do," meaning the media, Gettleman said. So I'm just going to say that we're happy with the group that we have. Obviously, you're always trying to get better, and you're not going to take a player just to take a player. Take a player because you think he's going to improve the value of your team. I think it was Duggan that said, "Is it okay that he said something about good enough Gettleman, he said, like, I guess do you consider your offensive line good enough or something like that? And Gettleman's first response to that was, well, you're not looking for good enough, you're looking for good, which I thought was also, that's a good, I like that little quote, but aren't you not looking for good enough, you're looking for great? Like, you're not looking for good, you're looking for great. I feel like that's a little bit of a better word, but I guess he was going off of what Duggan was saying. I just thought that was kind of a little funny, but anyway, I think we ran through everything pretty quickly, to be honest. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have the undrafted free agents too before we wrap it up. So I'm just going to go through them real quick, and then Josh can make a comment at the end. But so first we're going to start with center Breit Hedgy out of Florida. Breit Hedgy, I'm not going to, we'll figure it out at a later date. He's a great teammate. Apparently he was a big leader in Florida, good in pass protection, struggles in the run game, and is a bit undersized. I think he has a very good chance of making the team as the backup center. Next, we have defensive end Raymond Johnson III out of Georgia Southern. Good motor, uses his power well, does not have an explosive first step, not third step, and definitely needs to polish his pass rushing moves. Again, could possibly make the team. I think Hedgy is more likely to. And then O-lineman, or I guess he plays guard, center, whatever. Jake Burden out of Baylor. No need to really talk about him. He's not going to make the team. He was pretty shocking in college. But yeah, those are the three undrafted free agents. I don't even have a description on Burden. It's just like no one really, he was, it's just not worth talking about him, to be honest. No offense to him.
I'm trying to find like descriptions on them, Alex, and I'm like scrolling through defensive end rankings just to see if I can find like some stuff on Raymond Johnson, and like nothing comes up here on by Smith.
Jake Burton was, there's nothing on him, but he was at UCLA originally, and then he moved to Baylor. He came to the draft, I guess, and we signed him. But I think Hedgy definitely has a good chance of making the team, especially considering the lack of depth we have at offensive line, especially at that center and guard position. But yeah, those are the undrafted free agents. I would say one thing in terms of what Gettleman said about the offensive line. If you look at who we brought in, I think one person that no one really talked about, Zach Fulton from the Houston Texans that we brought in. I think people are forgetting that I think he's going to be a starter. I think he'll start at that right guard position. Then you'll either have Lemieux or Hernandez at that left guard position. I think people are forgetting about him. Not saying he's an all-worldly guard, but I think, he had a bad season last season. We get it. But in his previous years in the NFL, he was an average guard. So I think he could do a decent job there. He's definitely not a permanent solution. He's kind of a plug and fill kind of player who's going to plug the gap till we get a better guard. The guard class next year, I haven't really looked into it, but I'm guessing next year we'll most likely be drafting a guard or even a tackle, depending on how Pierre does. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to mention about the offensive line. Again, the offensive line, it's not obviously talent helps on the offensive line and good individual offensive linemen help, right? But the offensive line's a unit, right? Hopefully with Rob Sale when he came in, yes, I said his name right. Rob Sale, when he comes in, he'll be able to coach these guys up well. And it's really, are they going to be a good unit? Because the offensive line is a unit more than any other position in football. So it doesn't matter if you have, 5, Pro Bowl level offensive linemen, but if they can't, communicate properly, if they can't work together as a unit, then they're going to be the worst offensive line in football. So I think that's one of the big problems. I know last season we were shifting around a lot with the different offensive linemen. Mainly due to the fact that we didn't have a good offensive line. We need to try on and see what would work. I think this year, if we keep, the same guys out there for a long time, barring no injury concerns, these guys will gel. If we make sure we say who the starters are going to be and they work together as a unit, Thomas gets familiar with either Hernandez or Lemieux and maybe Fulton gets familiar with Pierre. I think, the unit could be good. So I think that's the main thing that, Gettleman's banking on here is that all these guys, especially the 3 rookies or the 3 sophomores now coming into their, second season in the NFL are really going to take a big step up, and the unit as well will take a big step up as a whole.
And remember, coming into this undrafted free agents kind of list, a lot of them got playtime. The main one I would say was Nick Gates. You have CJ Board as well. I think these players could be expected to do some more than people expect. Obviously, we had the wide receivers, Benjamin Victor and Austin Mack. So get familiar with these. Obviously, Alex, like you said, kind of weak draft class towards the end. Might not see a lot of them, but maybe those offensive linemen could get some play time. I guess we're ready to start wrapping it up. Check out for my blog post later this week, and Alex will go into thegianttake.com a little bit before we wrap it up.
Yeah, go check out thegianttake.com. Josh will have his blog post up in the next couple days, like he mentioned. You can check out our episodes and also subscribe to the newsletter on there as well. On the homepage, just put in your email and you'll get all sorts of updates from us. None unnecessary updates, just the necessary. We're not going to spam you. Also, make sure, I guess that's it, right? Yeah, for me. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter at the Giant Take Pod. I'll let Josh go into us in our individual Twitters.
Yeah, exactly. So where you can find us on Twitter at the Giant Take Pod, like Alex mentioned, that my Twitter is at JoshSolo29, while Alex's Twitter is at Anorian23. And then go follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Giant Take. We had some draft stuff on there. We did a live stream on YouTube if you have not seen that already. And we had our draft reactions to the first and second round picks of Xavier Howard and Rodarius Toney, which I did in the wrong order. I just realized that, but whatever. It is what it is. If you want to think about it that way, think that Xavier Howard was our first round pick and Rodarius Toney was our second round pick. I feel like that sounds a little bit better. That's how I'm just going to put it, just because Xavier Howard was more projected as a first round pick. But I guess it also does sound better that we got Ojulari at 50 too. You know, kind of show that off a little bit. We got him mid-second round. Wherever you're listening, subscribe as well. And then 5 stars rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you're able to do so. And I think that'll wrap it up as Alex will give his closing thoughts. And then we'll go on to episode 94 at some point. I don't know about what we'll have to talk about that. I mean, if anything else comes out, we usually do stuff on Thursdays as our main date. Obviously, that's kind of changed throughout the last few weeks. But we might have an episode on Thursday if a lot more news comes out. If not, you'll hear from us sometime next week.
Yeah, either this Thursday if more comes out, like you said, or next Thursday, most likely. I know the schedule comes out in, I believe, 11 days now, so we may do an episode exactly on that day to go over the schedule. So we'll see. Just if you follow us on social media, you'll get the updates there and on the newsletter as well, so you'll know then. Also, we're on YouTube now, so make sure to go subscribe, like, comment. I guess, no, you can't comment. So just subscribe and like, and we'd really appreciate that. We need to remember to start saying that at the end and the beginning of the video or whatever. It's weird saying that. But yeah, that's been a wrap for episode number 93 of the Giant Take Podcast. I've been your host, Alex, always joined by Josh. And we'll see you next time with another Giants episode.